But yeah, so this is the big story of the week, big story of this episode. Toby Keith passed away. He had been battling stomach cancer for better part of the last couple years. 62 years old, way too young. Definitely sad to see him go. The impact that Toby Keith has made on country music, it cannot be, overstated, because here's a guy that had went from working in the oil fields, uh, from Oklahoma, working in the oil fields as a young man. Then he started playing like semi-pro professional football for a little bit before starting his music career as a defensive end, because Toby was a big dude. Then in the 90s, he released 4 records, and he was actually, Carter's right, like he was a big part of 90s country music and was a big star in the 90s. A lot of people who were a little bit younger than us probably only remember Toby from, post 9/11, because he became a huge star with a lot of his, patriotic, sometimes like people could criticize it being for like maybe overly flag waving in some ways, but his very like American military centric music at that time, or even like his kind of like Red Solo Cup style stuff was later in his career. But if you look at the discography of Toby Keith, there's a lot of like incredible songs there, because one thing Toby Keith was definitely first and foremost a songwriter. The thing about his music, he wasn't writing these intricate stories that have so many layers in the vein of like an Evan Felker or a Jason Isbell, but Toby Keith always had his pulse on what the common man felt. And he said it the way a common man would say it. And it resonated with people. And there were some very well written, fantastic songs, like many of them throughout his career. The man had like 20 number one hits, had most of his records go at least gold, if not platinum. He had 4 gold or better records in the 90s. And then in the 2000s, we all know what happened. Won Entertainer of the Year in '03, and just went to the moon on another stratosphere. Like I said, in that post 9/11 wave of patriotic country music is one way of putting it. But, a lot of people I've been seeing kind of being negative about it, who strictly based on politics. And I was just like, yesterday's not the day to do that. The man just passed away. You don't have to like his politics. Toby Keith was a guy that was very opinionated. He was very brash. And you could even call him controversial at times. We all were old enough to remember the Dixie Chicks and Toby Keith's beef that they had, and about the Chicks' comments on President Bush back in the day, and Toby Keith defending it. But the reality is, Toby Keith was a big part of country music. He was one of the soundtracks of my childhood. I was always a huge fan of Toby Keith, and I do lean towards his 90s output more than his 2000s, but even in his 2000s stuff, there's a lot of good songs on those records. He still put out a lot of good songs on the radio in those times. It wasn't all Red Solo Cup and courtesy of the red, white, and blue that kind of gets lampooned by people now in 2024. But that song was a huge song at the time. It kind of encapsulated the way the average American felt at the time. Rest in peace, Toby Keith, man. Like this one hit me a little more than some of the others that I've seen, I would say, just because, like I said, Toby Keith was a big part of my music listening childhood. I remember my younger brother is not a big music guy, still to this day is not, but he loved Toby Keith. His first album was Toby Keith, I think in like 2000, 2001, his record, Pull My Chain. Landon loved that because he loved that song, I Want to Talk About Me. Like, yeah,
Yep.
like Toby Keith, man, like so many good songs, and just an incredible songwriter, and like that has had a big impact on country music.
I want to dive into that one song. That one song, you know, when I associate Toby Keith, I associate it with my late grandfather going to various pig cook-offs or whatever, walking out in his shop when he was doing whatever he was doing, so he didn't have to go in the house. Um, I really, I listened to it. I never really put much thought to it. But as a quasi-married man, I respect that song so much more because 90% of your job in a relationship is to listen to their problems.
I want to talk about me. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah. And sometimes you just want to vent. And I never thought about it until I got older. 99% of your life is listening to stories about people you don't know at their work. And sometimes you just be like, I want to tell you about what the hell I went through today. It's all fantastic, but I want to talk about me. And that song, that song really resonated with me today when I was going back to the back catalog. I was like, you know what? Never thought about it, but yeah, he was right.
Yeah, I mean
Oh,
that was almost like even like he was it was so fast paced with his cadence. It was almost like he was quasi rapping at
yeah,
the
I
time
mean,
too.
he
Yeah.
he rolls through right before he gets to the chorus. I don't know what you call that verse
Kyle's like
in a
straight
song.
bars.
Yes, sir. My biggest respect to Toby Keith though is in his '93 album cover. I mean, my man is channeling every bit of Keith Whitley on that album cover. The mullet. I mean, he
The tucked
quasi
in button down.
tucked in button. I mean, he quasi looks like Keith Whitley. He is
Yeah,
channeling every
early
bit of
90s
it.
country. It
Every
screams early
bit.
90s country.
Yeah. He is just everything he can do. He's channeling Keith Whitley.
You know, the funny thing is, like Toby Keith had such a massive impact on American culture for a little while, but also like you talk to people who are not huge country music fans. Classic Rock Carter, a great example. I'm glad he left a voicemail on that because reality is he was one of those people, him and like Tim McGraw from that era, were people that if
Mm-hmm.
even if you didn't know country music, you knew some Toby Keith songs. And he parlayed that into a just talking about his career success, not just in music. The man was regularly at the top of the highest net worth of people in country music because he had a very successful for a while restaurant chain. He co-founded Big Machine Records at the time that he ended up then just being a minority partner in it, and he started his own label called Show Dog that merged with Universal, Show Dog Universal. But Big Machine Records, you know who was the big player for them to get them on the map? Someone you're going to see this Sunday on television a million times is Taylor Swift. Like he
Yeah,
was one of the people
he
who,
did sign
yeah,
her.
he was one of the people that helped sign her. He was like in there in some of the meetings when she first like signed with Big Machine. He was an owner of that company. Like the man knew he was savvy with business on top of just being a good songwriter and putting out hits and just some damn good country music on top of it.
Yeah, the only reason I knew that is because I saw this Twitter thread that somebody put out about how they were so mad that Toby Keith initially signed Taylor Swift. And I was like, did he really? And I went and looked it up and I was like, he did. He had he was instrumental in getting her when she was like 17 or 18 years old. And I was like, wow, I never knew that. And I was like,
You
why
know
is this
what's
person mad?
what's funny is for the Taylor Swift haters out there, you can make an argument. The realistic argument is she's probably was talented enough she would have found a way anyways. However,
Sure. Yeah.
you can make an argument that thanks to Toby Keith and Eric Church, Taylor Swift became what she became. Toby Keith because he was part of the team that had the label that took a chance on a 15-year-old girl and signed her. And then Eric Church because he played too loud, got kicked off the Rascal Flatts tour for playing too long and too loud, and then got replaced by Taylor Swift when she was first starting out. That was her first big break on a tour. And Taylor even wrote him a note when she had her first gold record, thanking him for getting kicked off the tour. So it's like you can make the argument for the Taylor Swift haters out there, Toby and Eric.
That's true. And look, I have my problems with Taylor Swift. My biggest
Mainly football related.
no, my biggest current problem is the fact that she showed massive disrespect to Celine Dion at the Grammys. I saw that on
Well,
YouTube.
that was actually explained. Like, so Celine Dion apparently has it's well known for people that are around her that
Yeah,
it's some type of condition she has.
she has
You're
stiff
not
person syndrome
you're
where
not
she
supposed to
has
touch her on stage. Yeah. So
yeah.
and then they took a
It
photo together
just
later
looked
that evening,
it just
like
looked
and was
bad.
posted it. It may have, but it's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean she has
Yeah.
stiff person syndrome where like she probably will never be able to sing or live again. And I've told you both of you this. There's three people in the world that could ever hold a tune with her, and that's Whitney Houston and Martina McBride. And I'm Celine. I will be a Celine Dion stan till the day I die. But I don't know. I didn't watch the Grammys. No one watches the Grammys. I saw it on a YouTube reel. But her just motif, I'm just like, you could have done like a bow or something to acknowledge her that she's on stage instead of just, walking up and taking your award. I know there's things like you just said, but it was a bad look. The woman's a legend. The woman's a legend.
I don't disagree necessarily. Yeah, I was about to say, like,
I would have given her a bow.
This sounds more like a social media. This sounds more like a social media controversy more than an actual real controversy. But let's not let Kyle win and let Taylor distract from the topic of the day, and that's Toby Keith. We're going to see plenty of Taylor on Sunday, Kyle.
God, please. There's only one man that I put my faith in, Lamar Jackson. He let me down. There's only one man left.
It's Brock Purdy.
It's Brock Purdy, baby.
Mr. Irrelevant in the draft a few years back.
Right. But can I? Yeah. All right. We talked about conspiracy theories earlier. Can I give you my one conspiracy theory about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce?
You've already told us this. We did this on an episode a while back. It's all a psyop.
No. I still believe it's a psyop. After watching them kiss after the AFC Championship game, it didn't look like real love. I don't know. It just looked really awkward. But no,
you sound like a woman.
He does. Like Andy and I are over here trying to talk about the unfortunate passing of a country music legend, and Kyle's tapping into his Swiftie.
You brought Taylor Swift. All right. No, what I'm saying is there's two outcomes to the Super Bowl. Either one, she breaks up with Travis Kelce and she writes a song about how once again she chose the wrong guy. Or two, they get married and have kids. If they get married and have kids, we will have the second baby boom. I'm calling it now.
I can agree with that.
There are millions of 30-year-old women that said, I don't want kids. Oh my God, Taylor Swift had kids. I want to have a kid.
I can see that.
Yes, the second.
She has a lot of sway over the hardcore Swift fan. So yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's my conspiracy there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's conspiracy, more of just as a prediction.
Or she dumps him and she writes a song about she picked the wrong guy again. But
yeah, so like back to Toby, I will say that I did a deep dive into his 2000s album cuts because I knew all the hits from 2000s and I knew a lot of his 90s country music quite well. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of like stuff from that 2000 stuff on the records on the albums that is just actually really, really good. And then one of the last songs he released was a song called Don't Let the Old Man In. And it just shows him coming full circle of putting out another fantastically written song. And it was inspired because I think he was going hunting or something with Clint Eastwood. And, Clint Eastwood's a rather old guy. And he was like, just telling Clint Eastwood, he was like impressed by how at his age he's able to do all the stuff that he does. And Clint Eastwood uttered the phrase, well, I'll get up every day and go out and I don't let the old man in. Then Toby, knew that had to be a song. And ended up making it's. Highly recommend it. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, all that. But that's just kind of him coming full circle with his songwriter side because, like I said, at his core, Toby Keith always was a songwriter.